to talk about the landings itself. So what happens after you've had this great skydive? Well, Tom Eagle, who is a CSPA Coach 1, yeah, he's about to kick it off and lead us in the right direction for that conversation. So, Mr. Tom, where is Tom? Is Tom
here?
Oh, hey, thanks, Tom. Well, Tom, I will let you take it over.
Okay. Now I don't know how to full screen it, but cool. So post pre-fall priorities. Can everyone see the little presentation thing with Gord landing beautifully?
Yes, we can.
Cool. So as Pete described, we had an awesome skydive, and the canopy's open. No malfunctions. We're not about to die under a spinning main. We're going to try not to do it under a perfectly working main instead. So we'll go through the priorities. What next? Picture of Colin and yeah. So priorities. This is from the Flight 1. Poached a little bit, but it's also available in the PIMS and the SIMS if you want to check the US resources. After your canopy opens and you've determined that it does in fact fly safely and you can totally land it, those are the 4 things you're really concerned about. Priority number 1, landing under a level wing, and that is under a wing that, you know, is oriented both side to side, level underneath the center cell, and also when it talk fore and aft, you're not swung out super far in front, super far behind, such that you can land, you know, as comfortably as possible. Next priority after that is landing in a safe area. You can see that awesome Friday Freak Out screen cap on the left-hand side where the dude's like landing in the middle of the parking lot, somehow survives. You know, we'll talk about that in the next slide. All you need to do is land somewhere that's not necessarily going to kill you based on the obstacles or surface you're landing on itself. Priority number 3, a flare. The presumption is that, you know, you're on some sort of canopy that's descending at a speed fast enough that you're going to need to flare. Maybe you're under like a 500 square foot military square where, you know, maybe a little bit of flare gets you enough to peel off out of it. But almost every other parachute we fly, you need to flare a little bit to avoid some serious injury. There might be an instance where you want to flare to just half brakes. You know, Flight 1 goes into obstacle avoidance and that kind of stuff. But you're at least going to want to flare in almost every single landing. And then priority number 4 and last in this order is landing into the wind. It's nice. We all like to land in a tippy toe sort of fashion and not have to run it out like demons. But the first 3 are a lot more important than the last one. So how do you get under a level wing? A couple of pictures here. You can see a nice tandem ripping it in on the right, and then someone covered up for their anonymity coming in under an unlevel wing and not really in super good control. So how do you get under a level wing, really? It starts off with sitting nicely in the harness. And this starts with basically as soon as you've deployed your parachute, you want to sit evenly and comfortably in your harness so as to, you know, provide level inputs between the 2 risers. And that goes all the way from opening all the way down till, you know, 2 or 3 steps after landing to make sure that you're putting equal inputs into your parachute. You're going to use the toggles evenly. So if you're coming in and you're flaring with uneven hand position, you're not going to be under level wing because as soon as your hands get split apart, you're going to be out from underneath the center of the wing. And that's both of those are realistically just going to be the side-to-side sort of motion. You know, see the tandem on the right swung out away from the center of the canopy. If you turn at a height that's not appropriate to recover from naturally, you'll be swung out behind the canopy perhaps, or swung out in front of the canopy, depending on where you are in that natural recovery arc. And you can see the USPA provided diagram on the bottom right. It really shows the dramatic sort of swing forward you get from a flare. As soon as you do a turn of any sort, harness, rear riser, toggle, you're gonna end up getting a little bit of back swing, and then you'll start recovering through underneath the center cell. If you haven't got through that full cycle, you are not going to be underneath a level wing, and then you need to deal with that accordingly, else you might get hurt. Most importantly, do canopy coaching, ask an expert, which is not me. I'm not an expert, but I'm talking to you now. So priority number one, getting under a level wing. This will avoid, 99.9% of the serious injuries we have in skydiving. Turn to the height that's appropriate, make even sort of inputs with your toggles, and you'll be good to go. Second priority is, of course, landing in a safe spot. How do you do that? Realistically, your canopy is going to open. Hopefully, you've opened it at a height that allows you to make good decisions. But realistically, if it's open at any height, you can then start deciding where you want to land. Unless you're like at 900 feet under reserve after an AED fire, you probably got a bit of decision-making time. So as soon as the canopy opens, you're into that routine of traffic, altitude, looking for other landing areas, determining the wind speed and direction, and then picking out where you're going to land. Flight 1, I'll keep plugging them. They have that acronym that I think they've just changed, but it used to be TAP. So all of the drills start with TAP, traffic, altitude, position, and then after that, you start working on your drill, whether it's stall, surging, or whatever, and then then you can start looking to get the ground again, see where you've ended up. So if you make decisions up high, you avoid having to make decisions down low. If you decide at 2,000 feet, oh yeah, there's no way I'm making it to the designated landing area. You've got plenty of time to set up, make a nice, comfortable, break turn maybe, and then settle your canopy down into an alternate landing area. If you wait until 200 feet, you're probably going to end up making a rash decision and get yourself hurt. So 1, level wing. 2, make decisions such that you can land in a safe spot. Priority number 3, a flare. Ideally, this is a flare that's all the way down, making your canopy stop its descent. So you've translated this canopy moving like this to no longer descending and just moving forward. You want to do it symmetrically. And if you have any imbalance, it's probably because your hands are, out wide, you're leaning with your hips, you're leaning with your shoulders and trying to stop falling sooner than your canopy wants to. You want to fly through the landing where you have your hands down, just like Dustin does in the top there, like Gord does on the right. Have your hands down, keeping the canopy stalled out as best possible until you're firmly on the ground. Poor censored gentleman in the bottom right, is reaching down with his foot, trying to land before the canopy wants to. Brings the left arm up, and then he's off in the long breaths. Of course, if you're not landing in a safe area, this is all for naught because you're probably going to get hurt from landing in a tree or in a parking lot or something. And then priority number 4, landing into the wind, talking to a bunch of skydivers. You guys know the impacts of sending a downwinder inadvertently. This is the annual reminder, eat the carrot. If you see the windsock, you're flying towards the hole in the end that's smaller than the one next to the pole. All right, patterns. Again, you guys all know what a pattern looks like. The PIM on the left, SIM on the left has a bit of a mathematical trigonometric approach where they can, say that X is some arbitrary number and then you have 2X and half X for your pattern. If you want to do that work in advance, you're probably some sort of swooper, or you're just really, really keen to get super precise, accurate landings. The CSPA model on the right just shows you a left-hand box pattern, flying downwind and then having the option to turn in earlier if it's windy, and then crab across your baseline. All that to say, up high, you're going to make your assessment of the wind speed and direction. You're going to make your decision, whether you're going to land in the designated field or the alternate field or, a road in between or something like that. And then you're going to start building your picture in your brain of what the pattern looks like. This is just the annual reminder. We fly nice, square, predictable patterns. You pick your landing area first, and then you walk back the upwind base and then the downwind appropriately. final approach. So, everything's gone right. We've identified that we're going to make the field. We're going to land, in the middle of the field next to the beers. It's going to be sweet. There's still some considerations to be had for how you do your final approach. There's a lot of work you can do with coached canopy coaching that can get you dialing in your turn altitudes so that you're coming in best set up for success and a nice landing. I would advocate for just talking to those guys and getting that dialed in. But you're going to want to think about what the wind conditions on final are going to do to your flare. There's that flight cycle. You can see there optimum being at full flight. If you start a flight cycle later on in your final, you're not screaming in with your hands all the way up, making your canopy breathe as best possible. You're going to interrupt the way that your flare is going to work. So you need to be cognizant of that and think about whether or not you're making a full speed or braked approach, and then relate that to your experience on canopy coaching. On final, you're coming in, you're looking at the middle of the field, you're focused on the beer in the middle. You're going to consider whether or not you're going too fast, you're going to have to PLF, whether or not you're focused on a tree, whether or not you're unfortunately landing in the water or whatever. And you're going to sort of prepare yourself on final, thinking about what you have to do. What you shouldn't be doing is thinking about, how sweet it's going to look when you snag a beer out of someone's hand on your way through the landing. So, we don't do a lot of water jumps at our drop zone. I don't think we ever have. But it's one of those things where you need to really think about in the last few seconds how your flare is going to look. Have you disconnected your RSL and what you're going to do immediately after. Obstacle avoidance. Allison asked me to talk about this one. There's a few different types of obstacle avoidance. There's the halfway through your final, you're a little bit off the ground, sort of like panicked brake turn around someone cutting you off. And then there's that smooth, delicate, someone just landed and is veered off in front of me. I'm going to make a little bit of a harness turn and get out of their way. Well, the harness turn that's nice and gentle and allows you to still, as much of a flare as possible. That's going to be ideal. It's always better to deal with these sort of problems early than have to make a really drastic alteration of your course later on. So if at all possible, make a harness turn or make a coordinated turn onto your final, get the canopy breathing, start the recovery arc, and then make a really gentle, long, deliberate harness turn away from an obstacle. If you need to do a really drastic maneuver towards the ground, you better hope that it's not the first time you're doing it. Brake turns are your best friend because they're going to really save your bacon and probably your legs. Canopy coaching will obviously lead you to being forced to try those maneuvers, but it's not something for people to try to get their A license to do some braked approaches or brake turns and then forget about. If you expect to stick around for a while, you probably should brush up maybe at the start of each season on some canopy sort of avoidance drills for openings, and then later on in the canopy flight before you get into your pattern, do some braked approaches. There's also, you can totally fly your pattern all the way through doing nice brake turns, mixing it up a little bit. And it's nice to slow your canopy down if you have separation, if you want to create separation, what have you. Just don't forget about them, because if you have to use it near the ground, you want to be pretty good at it. Okay, so you've landed. Everything's great. You've just landed your sweet gray and red canopy there. You're walking towards the field, center of the field to grab your beer. What do you have to do next? You look up and you listen. So often we're wearing helmets that are really tight to our ears. We don't have the best ability to hear stuff. Also, your ears are probably still popping, or you have like that drone of the plane still in your ears. So you're not necessarily perfectly set up to hear a quiet, slowish canopy coming in behind you, and you're likely to get kicked. This is the sort of annual time to remind you that wingsuiters, tandems, high pullers, crew folks, all those guys come in much, much later than the rest of us free fallers. So it's likely that, we're landed, all of our stuff's daisy chained, we're walking to the center of the field, grabbing our beer, and then the wingsuiters come swooping in under the cool Omicron canopies. So you got to watch out for them, as well as the tandems, obviously, because they're pretty limited in how they can land, how much maneuverability they had. Okay, and finally, and probably most importantly, downsizing. So this is from the CSPA chart pulled from Big Air Sports there, Brian Germain. This is the sort of really loose direction that they're going to give you for how to downsize and what sizes should be a guidance for people making their way through canopy sizes. Obviously, there's no reason to downsize if your canopy that you have right now works fine, fits the container fits you comfortably, and you can fly the heck out of it. There's not any good reason to downsize unless you really want to get more performance to your canopy. You're having trouble penetrating through the air, what have you. But you're giving up a lot of flexibility as you downsize, because if you're really comfortable in the current canopy you have, you're then going to go through some time when you're figuring out the new one, and your jumping might be affected by it. You're going to be a bit more anxious in the plane. You're going to be concerned about, no wind days. So this is meant to be a guidance, but really it's just to slow people down. It's not to tell people, you need to hurry up and downsize. On the left, we got an exit weight, 200 pounds, 220 jumps. Ideal being a 210, that's the sort of recommended CSPA number. 200 jumps in. They're still getting the basics of, really learning the fundamental stuff of free fall. Introducing exciting new canopies at that point probably is going to be a lot for a lot of people. With the smallest recommended by CSPA being a 172, I presume like a triathlon or something, and then a weird size like that. And on the right, 200 jumps later, really CSPA is recommending a 150, at the very smallest 130. And ideally a 400 jumps, a 130 is a bit on the spicy side. That's going to be really dependent on the people, and certainly not a rule. The downsizing checklists and criteria, there's a few different options. So the PIMS and the SIM both have sort of recommendations. They have drills that you can go through. The flight canopy coaching courses don't really advise people how to downsize, probably for a liability thing. What they'll tell you to do is, downsize once you are 100% comfortable flying the canopy that you currently have. And that kind of means a different thing to a lot of people. Big Air Sports on the top right has some, it's where that source table came from. That's in the CSPA PIM. And there's a whole list of canopy control drills that Brian recommends you do before you downsize. Not mentioned in the American or Canadian information manuals is the canopy pitch control. So this will be my plug here to have a read. The link's on the top right there. If you Google downsize, canopy downsize or something like that, it should pop up pretty much at the top. Realistically, downsizing introduces speed invariably, and increases the likelihood that you're going to get hurt. And the way to really stop that is to start managing the pitch control or pitch change as your canopy swings out like that, perhaps more rapidly under a smaller canopy. So of all the things you can work on after you started downsizing, you probably want to work on pitch control. Some things to consider before you do it though, is my new canopy similar to my old canopy? Is it elliptical? Is it square? Do I still weigh what I think I weigh? If it's this time of year and you're 20 pounds heavier than you were when you put your rig away, it's definitely not the time to downsize, because your wing loading will change drastically. If you're downsizing, your new canopy might not fit all that well into your container. So that might be a concern if you're, it's loosey-goosey in your D-bag and your D-bag's loosey-goosey in your container. It's not super ideal. And if you don't fly your current canopy well enough, frankly, you're not ready to downsize. It's going to add additional stress. If you're freaked out by your canopy, you're not going to be a good skydiver in the air at any point. So best to get more experience into your current wing, and then downsize when it's ready. And if at any point you have any doubt about whether you should downsize or not, or if you are going to downsize, you should talk to your coaches. So any reputable C1, 2, if we had C3s around here, one of those would be helpful too. We'll be happy to give you some advice on, what you should think about in advance of downsizing. And certainly anyone at the drop zone, Gord or Allison would be helpful as well. I would offer that if you want to downsize because whooshy sounds are sweet, or you want to look cool in a sleek new rig, or you don't think your canopy goes fast enough, but you're not flying the heck out of it, you're probably not quite ready yet. Is there any questions about that?
Tom, I'll get you to unshare your screen. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you very much, Tom. And I appreciate the little slideshow there. Does anyone have any questions for Tom? Oh, look at you guys. Just a quiet little audience today.
I do. I have a
Okay. Oh, hi, Jack.
Tom, how would you describe the what you've learned through Flight 1 and the courses that they've taken? How much do you think it's benefited you in your canopy piloting abilities?
Well, I'm gonna lay on here. So I actually wasn't very good at landing for the first like 400 jumps. I consistently missed the field. First season, you guys were at the new drop zone. So I took some Flight 1 coursing with John Minos, and it had improved my skydiving considerably because I guess I was on a 150 when I first took it with 400 jumps or so, and I was surviving just fine. Most often landing, with no issues, but quite a lot of sort of shitty landings and missing the field. And then within 6 months, I had done a little bit of coaching and basically was very comfortably, confidently landing middle of the field every time. So I advocate for everybody getting canopy coaching. It's not for everybody. I shouldn't say that. The style for some canopy coaches is not for everybody, but everybody should get canopy coaching, because if you don't like someone or the way that they address the problem, you can find somebody else at a different drop zone or somewhere else that will connect with you best and probably get you sorted out, and you'll find a huge benefit from it, because landing comfortably, no wind at a big drop zone makes it that much more fun instead of getting stressed out about it because you're sort of just figuring things out. Highly recommend.
Thanks.
Awesome.
And I would concur with what Tom's saying there. If I look back at our skydivers have really progressed with their canopy skills, landing at the drop zone. I think of Monica, I think of Tom as sort of two off the top of my head, and canopy coaching made a world of difference for what they've been able to do, where they progress themselves. If you look at fatalities, besides the one that's about to happen to Jack, if you look at skydiving fatalities that happen around the world, most commonly people have a perfectly good functioning canopy over top of their head. And so take this information and use it. Thank you, Tom. I particularly appreciated the picture of me that looked like I was probably going to land on my feet, and then I probably just slid it out anyway. So thank you.
I would never show you sliding it out there, don't worry.
Although we'll take a conversation on the side about the picture you showed of me, but that's okay. Well, Tom, thank you so much.